Welcome to the Heartland Journal podcast with Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the show. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and pass it around. We only grow with help from you. Thanks for doing it. If you're watching on Rumble, I'm pointing at you. If you're listening, I'm talking to you. On this show, we are focusing on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community. We interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today, we're talking with special guest Sean Patrick Flanery. Born October 11th in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and raised in a small town outside of Houston, Texas, while attending the University of St. Thomas in Houston, he saw a beautiful girl leaving a building on campus every Monday and decided to drop an English class and sign up for whatever the hell they were teaching in that building. The building was the university's theater department, and the class was acting. Sean Flanery is known for his role as Connor McManus in the Boondock Saints and the Boondock Saints 2 All Saints Day with real-life best friend Norman Reedus. They met in 1994 and have been besties for over 3 decades, like a brother guiding him during his early career, he said. Since 1988, Sean has appeared in over 53 films, including Powder, Simply Irresistible, and Detox. He is best known, however, for playing Indiana Jones in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Off camera, Flanery is a high-ranking martial artist, having earned his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from the Renzo Gracie lineage of May 4th of 2008. He owns his own BJJ academy called Hollywood Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in West Hollywood, California, where he trained regularly when his film schedule allows. Flanery is also noted for winning the Toyota Celebrity Race of Long Beach 2 years in a row, the first as an amateur and the second after being invited back to compete as a pro. He won after qualifying on the pole both times. And yes, the Boondock Saints 3 is confirmed to be in development, with stars Norman and Sean Patrick to reprise their roles as the McManus brothers, cult classics. Married to Lauren Michelle Hill with 2 kids, Porter and Charlie. Let's talk to Sean Patrick. Hello, Sean. How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on here. You don't call LA home anymore. Where are you talking to us from?
I'm talking to you from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Tiny little town, very similar to a little town that I grew up in Texas. It's when I first moved out to LA from Texas, my granddaddy was on the porch, and I brought him. I wrote a script, and I said, "Hey, granddaddy, I'm going to move out to LA." And he goes, "Let me tell you something, son." He goes, "Everybody, when they grow up like you did, a lot of green land, they sit out on their porch and they're looking out and they say, one of these days I'm going to move to the city and I'm going to make something out of my life." He said, "But make no mistake, there's going to come a day when you're on the top of that building looking out over all the city and you're going to say to yourself, man, one of these days I'm going to retire and buy me a plot of land and just sit on a porch. So you know what, son? I'll meet you right back here." And he was 100% accurate.
Wow. Well, they know. Oklahoma has become one of those Hollywood East places. What's the movie business like in Oklahoma?
I mean, they have a lot of good tax incentives, credits, and whatnot. Certainly the topography, it's a beautiful state. You're not driving down the street seeing productions left and right. It's not Atlanta. It's not the way Toronto and Vancouver used to be. Nothing is shot in LA anymore. It seems like I don't know. Did you ever read the book The Long Tail?
Sure.
Okay. Well, it's a lot like The Long Tail. Instead of 95% of things being shot in Hollywood, there's the same amount, probably more things being shot, but they're divided into tiny little towns across America, in Louisiana and in Texas and in Georgia and in North Carolina and in Oklahoma and in New Jersey. It's and very little in LA anymore, and as well as out of the country. It's divided. You can shoot a feature quality film on My God, pretty close to your iPhone nowadays.
Doesn't have to
So
be the expensive New York City or LA Burbank area anymore. That's right. The problem is, it seems as they kind of lost the heart and soul of the people that they were filming amongst.
oh yeah, I mean, and a lot of people are just recognizing that now. I think it happened quite a while ago, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, nobody wants to shoot in New York. I mean, just if you fly people in, the hotel bill alone is tenfold what it would be here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's just feeding everybody dinner. The cost of having a caterer that lives in Manhattan to cater in Manhattan is very different than the cost of a caterer that lives outside of Dallas,
I
you know?
remember when George Lucas took a tour of Martin Scorsese's set for Gangs of New York, and Scorsese, being Mr. Accurate, he built millions of dollars worth of actual ships that would show the Irish coming to America or whatever. And George was shaking his head like, why? Why are you doing this? You could do this all digital in a studio and it would look amazing, like Titanic, and save a bunch of money and actually make a profit on this thing. That's what you're basically saying, is that they kind of figured that out, but that movie didn't do so well
Yeah, yeah,
business wise.
yeah.
I saw on your Instagram today that you suffer from the same ailment that many churchgoers do today. Your pastor wants to disconnect Jesus from politics for some reason, but he can't. We live in a Romans 3 world. We're east of Eden. You said you're mad enough to find a new church. What are your thoughts on Church 2025 Oklahoma? A lot of them grew if they kept themselves open during COVID, and the cowardly ones lost members or closed. Is this the next wave of church hurt? You know, that we, after the child abuse epidemic that we went through the last decade?
Well, you are your church. Your family is your church. Your community is your church. The building is a business. The building and most churches are a tax code. But make no mistake, your church is your peer group of like-minded Christians and brothers in Christ. That's what your church is. And we looked for a new church here when we landed in Stillwater. And I will say this, if you don't acknowledge the execution and assassination of one of the loudest, most profound, theologically accurate brothers in Christ, you're a fake church. And your pastor is a ballless, neutered, fake pastor. And I say that with my heart, and it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're the 12, you know, uh, it, you have to John Hancock. You have to sign your name for what you believe, loud and proud. And if they come, and they say, "Do you believe this?" If you say you believe it, I'm going to kill you. If you're a Christian, you have to go, "Yes, I do believe that." And I get it. Straddling the fence and not acknowledging it. I understand from a business perspective why you do it, but you shouldn't be in the business of church. There's a big difference between trying to procure the most congregants or the right congregants. And the message should not waver depending on what you're trying to achieve. Everybody says, well, church is for everybody. Yes, church is for everybody to come, but you don't change the message to soften it to get more congregants. And I think that's what's happening. It's disheartening. It's disillusioning. It kind of hurts your feelings, You want your pastor to stand up and go, "No, this was one of ours, and he was executed."
Yeah, and there's so much better messages that they could have tied it into, because we lost not only Jimmy Swaggart, but John MacArthur this year, and then Charlie, who had such an impact on what they've been raving about, where the young are coming back to church, but yet they've overlooked it. My pastor happened to have not. He knew Charlie. He was very big with Turning Point USA and Turning Point Faith. But I've heard this from others around the country, is sort of like, no, they missed the point, that Jesus is bringing home the good to avoid maybe what could be the evil coming. The old Jeremiah proclamations for 40 years, warning everybody, but no one would listen to him. A lot of people listened to Charlie. They took him home.
A lot of people listen to Charlie, and He followed everything up. I don't know of another mortal that says, bring them next. Who's next? Did you lose the argument? Hand your mic to somebody else. You have somebody stronger? Bring them. And he ended everything with, I will pray for you. He didn't end it with, like, you're not welcome here. And every single quote from a naysayer I see online is completely out of context or it's completely fabricated and just wrong.
They didn't know him.
And I think there's going to be a really horrific awareness whenever people do their research and realize, wow, I was completely wrong about this man. Now, if everything that these people believed were true, maybe they would think they would have a leg to stand on. But I think if they do a deep dive, they're going to go, wow, that quote that I thought I attributed to him, that's completely out of context. That's not what he said at all. And one after the other is going to fall, and they're going to go, wow, that tweet I said, where, some heinous statement of, I hope the bullet tastes good, which I read online, they're going to be horrified at having put that out on social media.
Hopefully their kids will too. But one of the problems, of course, with 2025 is that's just called tickling the algorithm. They're just getting paid on TikTok to say the most outlandish thing on today's trending headlines so that they can make a bunch of bucks. That's why Britney Spears dances, half naked with knives on TikTok. She's getting paid. She may or may not be crazy enough to do it, but that's disgusting. So we don't even know what those people really think, other than maybe there's a ulterior motive. Anywho, I want to get into a lot with you. So if we can, Paul Newman, Eric Bana, Paul Walker, I think was a friend of yours, Antonio Sabato Jr. has been on the show, and Senior. Some of my favorite leading men are into race cars. Brad Pitt now, probably with his success of F1, don't know what he really cares about. Kenny Rogers and Six Pack. I mean, let's get real. Burt Reynolds, Cannonball Run and Bandit. Jason Priestley, James Dean, unfortunately for him, and his Porsche 550. What do you love about racing cars? You actors.
It's it's one of the only things that when you're doing it, it's the only thing that you're doing. It's
Focus.
It's 100% encompassing, but it's it's like being a fighter pilot. It's physical, it's seat of pants feel, it's immediate reactions, but it's very cerebral as well. I mean, it's a physics equation, how to straighten out lines to go the fastest. There's a recipe. There's a mathematical equation to how to approach every corner. It's just it is an all-encompassing experience. I love jujitsu. I train jujitsu every single day, but I can be rolling and actually thinking about something else at some point. I can't do that while I'm racing. You are 100% lost in the moment.
Oh, that's interesting. Did Paul Walker or Newman, any of these guys, I suppose, have any influence on the hobby for you when you were young?
I mean, obviously, Paul Newman. I mean, I watched him race, and that was one of the few that really did it at a highly competitive level. He wasn't just a journeyman that, oh, well, I got extra money. Let me strap myself into a race car and go, 2 seconds off the pace, but do it anyway. Paul Newman was actually fast, and he actually won credible, highly competitive races.
And the Ultimate Passion Project, he made the movie about it.
Yeah, but he was one of the few that actually did it at the highest level.
If you were a casting agent and looking at your headshot, what do you think goes through their mind about you? You're as versatile as they come, but they call it typecasting. How do you think they type you?
Well, I mean, I can tell you how. I mean, all of the offers I get are for an ex-military, an FBI agent, a cop, or a bigot and a racist. I mean,
or a demon possessed and nefarious.
I mean, that's what I get. I get an offer for the wife abusing, intolerant bigot. It's or it's an angry cop.
The Irish. It's the Irish in you. It must be the Irish. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones that I get.
I
You know.
remember Mickey Rourke saying something about boxing because he didn't feel acting was macho enough for him. Antonio Sabato is boxing now too. Do you feel more satisfaction out of racing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or is Mickey just got some hang-ups?
No, I don't think he has any hangups at all. I mean, look, I love, I, I enjoy acting. I really do. Um, I don't, I'll put it to you this way. I don't think it's difficult. I don't think it's some stellar achievement. I think some people can do it and some people can't. I'll give you an example. In martial arts, you don't audition people or actually fight them to see if they can come into your academy. At the Actors Studio, which is widely regarded as the best acting school on the planet, you have to audition to get in. If you could teach this craft, why would you have to audition to get in? Because you have to have the ability to do it before you can start to fine tune and give you technical ways to even make it better. But some people just can't do it, and some people can. It's not something that you can 100% top to bottom teach. It's just not. And I love it. I love movies. I love whatever they call the craft is. But you'll hear some actors wax philosophical for an hour on their process. I mean, I don't feel like I have much in common with those people. I take my job very, very seriously. But for example, if I were to play a homeless man, I wouldn't have to go live in the street for a week to find out what it's like. I don't have to urinate on myself. I don't have to defecate and put clumps of it in my hair to.
That was called the method acting school for the Marlon Brandos of the world, or the De Niros, where they literally had to go crazy in order to pull this off. And you're saying, no, you can act. You can just kind
Yeah.
of.
No, I'll go on a limb and say they're absolute idiots, and they're making something up to make it sound more difficult than it is. When realistically, people I hear all the time like, "Oh, this role took years off my life." No, it didn't. Stop it. No, it didn't. You read the script. You gave yourself a set of circumstances that were very believable. You chose to try to believe them, and the body is a wonderful mechanism. It will react accordingly. If you convince yourself of that set of circumstances. But no, it didn't take years off your life. And if it did, you're doing it wrong.
I actually
You're
call
doing
that the
it.
Clint Eastwood School of Acting, where all you really had to do is have facial impressions, and look how long he's lived. He's still making movies. He's in his 90s, whereas Marlon Brando's long gone. So, yeah.
He's one of the greats, man.
And De Niro and Belushi, look what they did. Anyway, I shouldn't go there. But when did you get the bug? Do you remember when it bit you?
Yeah, of course. I was going to University of St. Thomas and I saw a girl leave a building every Monday. And I did what any red-blooded Texan does. He drops in English class and he signs up for whatever they teach in that building. Beautiful girl. And so I did. I dropped in English class and I signed up for that building. Happened to be the theater department. And so I started doing just about every play that they had. And after university, I wrote a piece of children's theater and I decided to drive out to LA and see if I could produce it. I was going to go into the Air Force, um, uh, but I thought, it was at the end of the 80s and nothing was going on. I mean, this was when you thought there's going to be 1,000 years of peace. And I went out there and an agent said, let me submit you on some commercials. And I thought, yeah, if it supplements my writing career. The next thing I know, I had three commercials going. And she goes, let me submit you on some theatrical. Theatrical means TV and movies. And I said, yeah, if it supplements my writing. The next thing I know, I was on a plane to go do Young Indiana Jones. And it just sort of happened that way.
That's when I first saw you. Yeah. And
And,
that was
and, and
amazing.
it really taught me a lesson because I moved out to LA to be a writer.
That was
The
an
only reason,
that was an educational fiction, let's just call it, the Young Indie series. I mean, they teach that in
well,
school.
yeah, it was. I think if you want a successful TV show, you have to lead with entertainment and not education. And I think that might have been its mistake. But um, Young Indiana Jones opened up every door that's open to me today. I worked with A-list people across the board, and I've never been an A-list person. I'm very, very proud of my history in this industry, but I've never been an A-list marquee player. But even on my first day of Young Indy, the names like Vanessa Redgrave, Christopher Lee, Elizabeth Hurley, all of these names, and then Sean Patrick, who is
Spielberg, right? Didn't he produce it?
yeah, George Lucas, Spielberg. It was a really really big deal. But moving out to LA to be a writer really taught me that
But River Phoenix got the big role in the Indy 3. What happened there?
that was before Young Indiana Jones.
Oh, they didn't know you yet?
Oh yeah, no, no, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
would, yeah. Moving out there really taught me that becoming an actor was viable. It seemed incredibly, you know, it just seemed incredibly subjective.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a team of 8 producers that select you, and they're probably never going to agree, and they're probably going to give more favoritism to their cousin so it just didn't seem like a viable option to me,
Yeah.
and I was wrong.
Yeah, it's
You know,
it's amazing how small of a town it really is because it's perceived as like the world, the universe, Disneyland. But
but
it's a small town once you get in there.
it's not only tiny, but yes, there are, 2 million actors in LA, but 1,999,000 of them really suck. When you get out there, you realize that it is flooded with people trying to get parts. But if you're if you're good, and without sounding arrogant, I thought I was good. I thought I could do this. I thought, when I would see a TV show, I'd be like, well, I could do it. I think as good as that guy did it. Certainly, there are some people that you see and you go, wow, that I don't know if I could do that well, but you could do that one. But it just seemed low percentage, and I was wrong. It's not low percentage. If you're good and you're a nice person and you're professional and punctual and likable and talented, you can work in the business. And so it was a lesson for me. Don't doubt, and don't go for a plan B because you think it's too subjective. And I was wrong. Pleasantly surprised.
When did you realize it wasn't looks like Mickey Rourke or acting skills like we talked about De Niro or even who you know, but your politics? They'd cancel you if you didn't agree with Hollywood culture. When did that dawn on you?
You know what? I don't have any absolute knowledge of cancel culture. I don't. I mean, I've certainly never seen a document. But I do know that Hollywood is an echo chamber, and they are so comfortable on movie sets to say outlandish things that people like myself and my family would find kind of appalling. But the fact that they're so comfortable to verbalize these thoughts publicly is what's really shocking. Like it would never occur to them that possibly somebody could be in the room that doesn't believe that or is trying to raise their family in a different direction. That's what's really shocking.
So their arrogance and their ivory towers were so insulated that they just figured everyone in the room either agreed with them or they would work to get rid of them anyway. So it was going to keep it this way. It sounds like a college campus or some of the other things we've heard about boardrooms where really any dissenting voices is just, they're not there. So they don't even know. They just think this is the way the world is, believe me, and we'll be happily ever after and we'll make really bad movies.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they publicly shout it from the rafters with no concern of maybe somebody thinks different. It would be shocking for them to believe somebody on set thinks different than them. And getting back to Charlie Kirk, it's
So
like here's a guy who at the end of every statement said, "Well, God bless you, and I'll pray for you." I don't wish death on anybody that disagrees with me, but there are people that would never want me on their set again if they knew some things about me. And it's shocking. It's like they all love the result, but they claim to hate the recipe. I mean, there are plenty of people that ask me like, "Wow, your sons, they're so disciplined, they're so smart, they're so athletic. What did you do?" Well, the recipe is traditional conservative family values. And I know you don't want to hear that, but you love my boys. You love the end result. But if I told you the recipe, you would claim that it's the wrong recipe. But it's the way that I got that. And there's people that elected for me to be the godparent of their child. And because they've known me for years and years and years and years and years of dinner conversations. And yet at the same time, they'll post something on Facebook that if you this, unfriend me. Well, I did that. Do you want me to unfriend you? You've known me for 25 years, and you've chosen me to raise your kid if anything happens to you. So you know me top to bottom. But if you this, unfriend me.
And that
It's
must be your Texas, Oklahoma upbringing, because the folks who came out of Hollywood High School who were born into this, the Jennifer Aniston's dad was a big time actor or whatever. Not picking on her. I don't know her personally, but they have a whole different mindset as to how to raise a child. Why does Megan Fox have 4 transgender kids? We don't know. It's weird. It's statistically impossible. They are from that swamp and you are not, and there's a handful of actors and actresses that aren't, and they seem to have their head about them, whereas the industry is putting out their stuff. Very confusing for the culture.
Well, it's not confusing for the culture. If you don't do your own gardening, you can't complain when the flower dies. You can't. They're not raising their own children. They have nannies raising their children. They send them to schools with about as much interview as you would an Airbnb person or a roommate on Craigslist. A 10-minute interview, and you're going to give your child to someone for 12 years, 8 hours a day, with a 10-minute interview, and sometimes not even a 10-minute interview. They just take them to a public school and they drop them off. They just figure that's where they should be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. We homeschool, and because I want my child around like-minded individuals. We have peer groups. They have plenty of friends, but they're all like-minded individuals. They're individuals that share the same ideas, secrets, dreams, values, ethics, morals. They're all believers. And yes, they do get to see every side and every perspective, but I do not want them tarnished and poisoned by a mind virus that I find to be evil.
Nice. Well, that's good. We need more people like that, raising kids like that. Taekwondo, when you were 9, obviously very intense person to start that young. Started training Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu later in life. I always laughed when I see like Steven Seagal movies from the 80s when he'd pull a move, or even the scene in Lethal Weapon when Mel Gibson somehow disarms the cop before the big fight scene. Totally unrealistic moves. But the techniques. Do you watch movies and shake your head? Like I remember SWAT with Charlie Sheen. I mean, come on. Not SWAT, Navy SEALs. I'm like, no way. Does that bother you when you see those fake things on TV, on screen?
No, it really doesn't. In the same vein of like, I get movies are an escape. And, I understand that if you're a fighter pilot, you probably watch Top Gun and go, that would never happen. But I love Top Gun. I don't care. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief. And above the law, Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal has about as much street fighting skill as I could list 50 other people. Probably just, Deion Sanders would beat up Steven Seagal just because he's athletic. No offense, but Steven Seagal, that's true.
Yes.
It's
They slow down his fight scenes so that he can
yeah,
actually
I
pull
don't care. I think Above the Law was an amazing movie.
I agree.
And I want to watch it.
Sharon Stone is in that. She's beautiful.
It's a great movie. But if you think Aikido is some deadly, lethal martial art, it's just not. If you're gonna risk your safety on a martial art, you're gonna get injured if you do it with something like Steven Seagal's Aikido.
Yeah,
If
he's
that's
not.
the
He
one
wasn't Bruce Lee, but he was the heir to Bruce Lee's cinematic tradition. Let's just say.
Yeah, but I don't mind. I don't need every fight scene to be realistic, and I don't pick it apart and go, well, that would never work. I mean, Steven Seagal was wrist locking everybody and throwing them with it, and I love that. I loved seeing it, and I would watch it in another movie. I don't need it to be grounded and real because real fighting's ugly. It's ugly. It's quick. It's scrambly. It can be slow and methodical, but that doesn't make for a really pretty movie. You need a pretty movie is high flying, round kicks, and highly dynamic movement, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be grounded in reality to me. Just like I don't know. There's so many fantasy films.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's really
If,
not
if
a flying dog in Never-Ending Story or
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
unicorns in
His
Legend.
bicycle started flying in ET. I was going, bicycles can't fly.
But I do think it is the success of Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible or anything he does, really, because the dude might actually die on screen one day, God forbid. He's so authentic, no stuntman. A lot of times, I don't know how the insurance companies let him do it. Do you appreciate him putting it all out on the screen like he does?
100%. And here's the deal. I- Tom Cruise, I'll see any Tom Cruise movie because the dude has impeccable taste in scripts. You know, going in, if it's a Tom Cruise movie, I don't know, it's like any of the great producers. They just have such impeccable taste that if they produced it, even if they did nothing behind the board, they picked that song and that artist, it's probably going to be really good. Tom Cruise movies, you're hard pressed to find one that's not good.
Yeah, Made in America,
Because
Collateral, that was out of character. I mean, the
every
dude,
single
yeah, and he saved Hollywood after COVID, in my humble opinion. I mean, it was DOA, and then he came out with Mission Impossible, and people went back to the theater because you had to see it on screen.
but the dude does all of his own stunts. He chooses the right script. He surrounds himself with the right directors. He's got impeccable taste. And I think that's really his strongest asset is his ability to produce, surround himself with a winning team. It's like, do I think Tom Cruise is the most versatile actor? No, I don't think he's the most versatile. He doesn't create a very different character. I don't need him to be. I need him to be Tom Cruise. It's like Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
I've only seen Harrison Ford be Harrison Ford,
yeah.
but realistically, that's enough.
He's Tom
I love
Cruise the
seeing Harrison
vampire.
Ford.
He's Tom Cruise the fighter pilot. He's Tom Cruise the. It's like I said, the Clint Eastwood school of acting. He just does him,
But
but he will put his
there,
life on the line.
but there is an exception to that, and it's what is it in the end of they're going to do a movie about that character. He's the movie producer, the fat guy.
From Tropic Thunder,
Tropic Thunder.
Les Grossman.
Les Grossman. Now that was amazing.
That
When I
was
saw that,
very out of character.
I'm like, dude, you nailed that.
And Magnolia too. He was out of character, even though he
Yeah,
played.
yeah. I mean, to me, every time somebody
And Rockstar. Gosh, now I'm thinking of a lot
disparages
of.
Tom Cruise, I go, man, I can't say a negative word about him artistically, technically, nothing. I mean, that dude hits it out of the park every single time.
Yeah,
And he puts it on the line. Whatever stunt. Now, granted, they have the budget to put a stunt team together to where it's so safe, but that dude's still doing it. I don't care. That dude is jumping out of planes. That dude is riding motorcycles. He's doing it all. And
parachuting 5 or 6 times while they burn it ahead of. I mean, he had to do it more than once. It's
yeah,
crazy.
that dude is Jackie Chan of actors.
That's an excellent comparison. You're absolutely right, and I hope he has as longevity as too, because like I said, the insurance companies must be so afraid. Hopefully, this is cool to talk about. But Lola Flanery was born in L.A. but moved to Toronto at age 3. She began her career in front of the camera as a model for campaigns such as Gap, Roots, and Target. At the age of 10, Lola decided to venture into the world of acting. Her first audition led to her first leading role alongside Dermot Mulroney and Justin Long in the thriller Lavender, which premiered at the 2016 festival. I forget which one, sorry. Must be proud of her.
I'm incredibly proud. I mean, to me, family is the most important thing in my life. And watching children blossom, watching them flourish is really what life is about. And, you can read a Hallmark card all day long that says children will change your life. But until you have kids, you don't realize the authenticity in those Hallmark cards. You really don't. And to see my kids make decisions for their future, whether they want to go into the industry or whether they want to pursue something else, is, it's breathtaking. It causes pause, and you realize that, like, handing the baton is kind of one of the most important moments in your life. They're your little messages in a bottle to the future, you know? I'm incredibly proud of her.
That's
A
awesome.
beautiful young girl with the future unfolding as you speak in front of her. And she'll be able to do absolutely anything she wants in this life.
I'll make a confession. I loved Universal Soldier and 2 and 3. I mean, come on, Burt Reynolds was in those, and her mom was crew in those movies. Uh, your poor daughter can't escape the acting bug when both parents were in the business, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. The industry is not for everybody. The industry requires a lot of hand holding, and you have to be a very, very well-adjusted individual to navigate it correctly. Because I think fame or unearned adoration is a cancer, and it can kill and destroy things. If you understand how to navigate that unearned adoration and not let it affect you and your core, I think you're golden. I think then you can deal with the industry for what it is. You can take all the positive and dodge all the negative. But I think that's a very, very difficult skill to learn. And I think those people are rare.
Yeah, I grew up. I saw the movie "Mommy Dearest," and of course we watched Carrie Fisher's career and all this kind of thing. And you kind of wonder, like, how do you maintain a sensitive, sweet persona actress on screen when yet the life is so hard just to try to be in the business? Like, all end up looking like some hardened. I can't even think of some hardened. The one who went to Vietnam, Jane Fonda.
Oh,
But
Jane Fonda, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but your wife, Lauren Hill, two boys, Porter and Charlie, they into jujitsu too, and any acting coming up for them?
They started training at 4 years old. Charlie, the older boy, the first place that he went after Senior Sinai Hospital was the Jiu Jitsu Academy. I could show the whole school uh, the newborn son. And so that was the first place that he stopped after the hospital. Um, just like I said about the industry, both of my boys, even my youngest, Porter, they had their acting debut and retirement in one film called Born a Champion. Uh, and that was a film that I wrote. So I put them in that, but and a number of agents came out of the woodwork trying to, sign them, but I want them to be kids. I want them to, pursue whatever they want to pursue, but we're not going to go to auditions. We're not going to chase. Hollywood has a very interesting perspective. They hate, child labor laws and there's sweatshops, but then they have their kid on a movie set in, you know, Atlanta, multiple hours a day. It's bizarre. Um, and I think on a one-off, to do a movie with daddy is there constantly, but that's not something that they're going to pursue. If they get to be 18 and they decide, hey, this is something that we want to do, that's on them. But right now, you're going to learn about life. You're going to be a kid. You're going to learn to navigate different personalities and friendships.
It does
You
seem
know,
like the child actors have most hardships going forward. I mean, we've talked to folks like friends of Corey Feldman and Haim and River Phoenix and all the rest, the ones that grew up on set, Kirk Cameron, sorry. Their teachers were literally on the set with them and then between scenes, and you're not really going to learn anything. And that seems very difficult. So for you to say 18 and over, yes, they may miss out on the childhood role of a lifetime out of the Disney Mickey Mouse Club, but they'll probably be much better human beings.
well, here's the deal. There's nobody on their deathbed that goes, if only I would have got that Disney Club role. Nobody, not a single human alive. Nobody. I mean, as a matter of fact, there's plenty of people that go, wow, if I didn't get into that when I was young, maybe I'd have, but you don't see the opposite. You don't see anybody.
If I ever get to interview Annette Funicello in heaven, I'll ask if it was the case. But that's the
There's
only
not
one I know that went on to big things and didn't get screwed up.
there's no parent that goes, man, on their deathbed, if only I would have made partner. There's nobody on their deathbed that says that.
Right.
They're talking about family. They're talking about, there's a lot of people that go, if only I would have been at his graduation, or if only I would have been at that soccer finals when they went to regionals. But nobody is going, if only I would have gotten my PhD. And it just doesn't
Rosebud.
happen.
Rosebud, right? All right. So Lauren, she was big time Playboy model, guest model, played herself in House Bunny movie 2008. How'd you meet Lauren?
I met her, a friend asked me, I was at a party, said, I never see you with any girl. Why? What's wrong with you? I said, I'm picky. She left. She walked back up about 20 minutes later and she goes, my friend, I have a friend and you're going to want her to have your babies. I said, yeah, of course. I said, yeah, who's your friend? Where is she? She showed me a picture and I said, oh my God. I think everybody has a type. And she hit my type over the center field fence out into the parking lot. And I said, well, give her my phone number. She goes, she's not going to call you. I said, what are you talking about? She's not going to call me. She goes, she's not going to call you. I said, well, invite her up here to the party. She goes, she's not going to come to this party. I thought, what are you talking about? And this is how long ago it was. She goes, send her a MySpace message. I said, I don't even have a MySpace. So I said, okay, fine, I will. About 2 weeks went by and she called me up. She goes, you didn't send her a MySpace message. And I said, I don't have a MySpace. I said, look, I'll start a MySpace and I'll send her a message. So I put a picture of me at 8 years old and I sent a message. I said, hey, our friend Julie says I'm going to want you to have my kids. My name is Sean. And there's a picture of me at 8. And so we started this, it's funny, here. We started a dialogue online on MySpace. And this is the dialogue. This is a printout of all of our exchanges.
Oh my goodness.
Lauren, my wife, printed this out for me one, I don't know, Valentine's. It's older than that right now. We've been together a long time.
That's cute.
That's our correspondence. And countless times I asked her out and she goes, well, no, I can't. I have to do this or that. And then finally, I was going out with my friends to a little bar in Hollywood called Happy Ending. And I said, well, look, me and 6 of my friends are going to Happy Ending. If you have some friends, would y'all all want to come and meet us all up there? And she goes, okay, yeah, we will. And she walked into Happy Ending and I saw her and I never left her side.
That is happily ever after for sure. Happy ending.
Yeah.
So you're a real life action hero, believe it or not. Your Irish Brothers Vigilante movie is a classic. Never even went into theaters, by the way, but it was a classic. What do you think, and that was because of Columbine, I believe. What do you think the future of superhero movies are now that Marvel has sort of had their grand finale with Deadpool 3?
Man, I don't know anything about superhero movies. I really don't. I don't watch any of the DC movies, not because they're not great or they're not appealing. It's generally that's not my flavor of films. And with kids, my time is so spent raising kids, and we don't have a lot of time to go to the theater or keep up with the newest DC or Marvel, or I haven't seen any of them. And when I say any of them, I haven't seen any of them.
Wow.
Now I hear they're amazing. And I know I'm probably missing out, but I also understand every time somebody comes up to me, they're like, oh my God, you got to watch this show. There's 7 seasons. I'm like, okay, well, let me run the numbers on that. That's, 242 hours that I could, dedicate.
Yeah. I could be working
I don't know where I'm going to squeeze 242 hours.
It did do wonders for guys like Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey Jr.'s careers. I mean, they made a lot of money, and they also became superstars. Did you ever want to be a superhero character and just be like, as a business, like that could help me pay for my writing skills?
Look, everybody wants more money. I mean, everybody wants, the ability to have zero financial pressure in their life. But outside of that, I've never wanted specifically just to be a superhero because I don't read comics. I don't really, when people talk about the intricacies of Batman and his backstory, I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, I know what I've seen from the TV show, the old 60s TV show, but I really don't follow the DC and the Marvel, and I don't know Spider-Man's backstory. Would anybody turn down an offer to be in a DC Marvel movie? Absolutely not. As I said, I'm like a C-list actor.
You did play Gunpowder on The Boys, didn't you? From
Yeah,
2019? Yeah. So you kind of have a backstory, so to speak, or you're in the what do they call it when you're in the Bible of superhero stuff now? You're there, Gunpowder.
yeah, and I love doing that. I mean, I don't get an opportunity to do like number one shows, and I think that was like an Amazon Prime number one show, and I had a ball doing it. But I don't think anybody would turn down that kind of stuff. But that's never been on my list of I'd love to play because I don't even know those names. Every time they say so and so has been cast as this character, I don't even know what that character is.
Yeah.
Fireball from the something series. I don't know who he is. But
Well, they do call these.
yeah,
They used to
wants
just
to
be
be
old
in a
serials,
$200 million grossing film.
right?
I've never been that. So yeah, of course I would. But it's just so outside of what I do. I'm kind of like a blue collar actor, work for hire, and so yeah, that would be amazing.
But they do, like I said, they do call them franchises, or they used to be called, just cliffhangers, and you'd see like the Lone Ranger, before a movie, and it kind of have a serial. They'd be a serial. You have that. You have Boondocks, which is now going on its third. Did it surprise you that it became a cult classic? And like I said, it didn't even come out in theaters. Maybe two that were rented by the producer just to actually have it out there. But it's become a big dang deal, and now you're going to be on your third series of it. Did it surprise you?
I mean, the success of any film is really surprising. I mean, the fact that it reaches that type of market, especially when it didn't have a theatrical release. So yeah, I remember, Regis called me one day and he goes, "Man, I just saw a T-shirt with our faces on it." I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "From Boondock Saints." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I was on Venice Boardwalk." And, then like a week later, he called me. He's like, "Dude, have you been to Blockbuster?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Dude, there's a whole shelf of Boondock Saints." I thought, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm at Fairfax and Sunset." So I went to the Blockbuster. I'm like, I called him back. I said, "Dude, you told me there was a shelf." He goes, "I swear to God, there was." I said, "You're wrong. There's a whole section." And he was like, "Bullshit." And then he drove up there and met me, and there was a wall of Boondock. It was just crazy.
It's because it was the most stolen and not sent back. I don't. People just loved it. They collected it. It's crazy. I rewatched it before this show just in case any pop culture came up. But I'm like, yeah. I mean, Willem Dafoe got to be like Buffalo Bill from what was that called? I don't know where my mind is today, but the one that gave Jodie Foster her Academy Award, Silence of the Lambs. Like it's
Oh yeah.
literally that popular of a thing. And of course, you pulled off the Irish. When you logged in, I thought I was going to hear an Irish accent. So normally I don't ask actors who experienced, as long as you, who have kids in it already, what they would say to their 12-year-old self, because you've been through the industry for 3 decades. What advice do you give young wannabe actors about the career, not your own?
Um, Understand the definition of success, um, and understand that it's significance, and it's not a financial number. If you chase that, you'll sacrifice parts of your soul. Um, Understand who you are before you go out there, and have a make sure that your roots are deep and you stay true to them, because there's a lot of temptation. There's a lot of things that can steer you off your path. But if you're raised correctly, Hollywood's not dangerous. Unfortunately, a lot of people out there aren't raised correctly, or they didn't have two sound parents with a lot of guidance and upbringing.
Yeah, too many housewives of Beverly Hills and not enough parents like you and your wife. Daytime Emmy 2019, The Bay, MTV Award 1996, Best Breakthrough Performance nominee for Powder, World Fest 2013, July Award winner, Jury Award winner, sorry, Line of Duty, and Amazing International Christian Film Festival 2024, Best Actor, Nefarious. It's nice to be recognized, but I get the point that you do these things for your soul. What do you love most about those roles, like demon possessed Edward Brady?
Well, the message, really. I think Nefarious is the most important film I've ever done by a comfortable margin. I think it's a crystal clear illustration of good versus evil. Um, some of the predicaments presented in the world today. I think it shines a very accurate light on current era of thought, of society. And I think the very C.S. Lewis-esque method of putting all the words in the demon's mouth allows it to be digested quite easily, as opposed to, so some theologian telling you the way you should live your life. The mocking format kind of made it very, very just that, digestible. And I think by the time people got home and it made them think, as opposed to somebody preaching to them how they should live their life, it just gives you a crystal clear portrait of what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, there's some classic scenes that will scar memories, and I think of Hannibal Lecter in the glass between him and Jodie Foster. His image, you can kind of see that, and then there's you, in my opinion, where the camera goes from left to right, and you're you on the one side, and by the time it gets to the back of the investigator, you are the demon, and that, like, talk about method acting, but you're not a method actor, you did it on your own, so that's incredible. And the writer of Nefarious is a very outspoken Christian podcast influencer that works for The Blaze and Glenn Beck, who was even canceled by Fox. They tried to cancel that movie in this era of cancel Christian culture. Did it affect you personally when they came for the movie?
Well, I don't know that anybody tried to cancel it.
They didn't let it be released. I remember they were turning up the heat in the theaters. There were the theaters that said, "Oh, the tape," like they didn't want this. They being, the world didn't want it to be popularly released for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if all of that is true. I haven't really heard a lot about that. I don't know. I mean, I think it reached quite a few people.
Can't keep it
Do
down, but yeah.
do I think there are people out there that would not want it to be released? I absolutely don't. But I didn't. Again, getting back to that, do I know that there's a list? I don't know that there's a list. I know that some people get hired and some people don't. I know that some types of movies get promoted and some others don't. Um, but I'm incredibly proud of that film.
It should be, yeah.
I think the writers, directors, I think they're the best writers I've ever worked with in Hollywood, bar none. Um, I think that script was probably the most perfectly manicured screenplay I've ever read, much less been a part of. And I think that's your goal in getting into the business, the hopes that it will someday, at least once, you'll get to perform a script like that. And I had the opportunity. So, I mean,
There'll be more. There'll be more, and they keep trying. I mean, they do keep trying, but it never works. Be it Cody Johnson music, Ann Wilson, Passion of the Christ, your movie, Last Temptation of Christ with William Dafoe, now Charlie Kirk. But even though they keep trying, what advice would you have for an actor or actress that wants to speak out for faith, or even just love of America, patriotism, unfortunately, but has been scared to by the industry or the mob, or maybe somebody telling them you better be quiet, like the old 50s communist scare like Charlie Chaplin had to, or Dalton Trumbo for that matter. What would you tell somebody who wants to live and have a career in faith but yet knows the industry is stacked against them?
well, you have to stay true to yourself, and not just in the acting industry, in any industry. You got to John Hancock your life. Everybody has to take a stand for something. And if you sacrifice your morals, ethics, and values to get further ahead, then you've sold your soul. You just have. And I'm never going to deny my belief to get more roles ever. I mean, somebody could come to me right now and go, hey, you'll be the next Batman if you'll just deny Christ. I'd say, I'm sorry, but I mean, that's just absurd to me. Just know who you are. And I think, look, there's good people out there. It's not all evil. I mean, there's a lot of evil in Hollywood. There's a lot of drugs and all kind of streets that you could turn the wrong way down. There's also some decent people out there making decent movies. There's room to have a career. If you're a man of Christ, if you're, if you have certain things that you're not willing to sacrifice, there's people out there like you. They're few and far between, but there's people out there like you. And also, my granddaddy said back when I was a kid, he goes, you can obtain wealth one of two ways. You can increase what you have or reduce what you need. So just reduce what you need to where you don't have to take that job.
Awesome. And I'd love to talk to you about all of them, but we don't have time today. But I see you have 7 upcoming projects in pre and post production. One released. You are Bill Frazier now on TV's Blue Ridge. Just out. New Sheriff Justin Wise is in the Blue Ridge Mountains. What are you most excited to see come out soon?
Well, I got to do Blue Ridge with a good buddy of mine, Jonathan Sheck. So I'm excited about that. I mean, he's got a great show. They shoot that out in North Carolina. It's a killer show. Gary Wheeler, killer producer, makes killer stuff. And talking about that, that's a guy that's making quality things that you don't have to make any sacrifice. He's a sound dude, top to bottom, and he's making a sound product. So that's a great example of stuff that's out there. I'm grateful to be employed in this industry. I really am. I moved out from Texas, years ago, and I haven't had to get a real job in a very long time. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to be employed in this industry. So every single thing that I have coming out, I'm grateful that it's there. I'm grateful to have been a part of, and I hope it doesn't stop.
All right, you got writer credit on Born a Champion you talked about, and Frank and Penelope were your 2. Do you like writing screenplays maybe more than acting now, or no way? Too much fun in front of the camera?
Well, like I said earlier, I moved out to be a writer. That's where my heart was. And then the acting kind of took over. So yes, I adore writing. As a matter of fact, I'm writing something right now as we speak. But yeah, that's a big part of my life. And it also allows me more family time. So I don't have to leave the house. I can do writing from my house. So a lot of benefits to it.
They say most actors want to direct. They actually say most actors want to sing, but whatever. Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner, obviously, many try. Do you have a dream project you want to direct?
Well, I wrote and directed Frank and Penelope. I wrote Born a Champion. Directing is, I want to direct things that I'm passionate about. So yeah, there are things, and there's something that I'm writing right now, which I will direct. I'm not going to get into the details of that right now, but yes, that's.
Keep us wanting more. That's a good strategy. So Hollywood has been through the valley of death, I believe. Disney moved to the UK because Georgia, didn't want to pay anymore. Gavin Newsom milked Burbank dry. Many states picking up, helping out with incentives. We talked about Oklahoma, Tennessee as well. But the projects have slowed down in general. It used to be like 300 a year. Now it's like less than 100. What do you think the movie business needs to do to get us back in the theaters and start making money again?
I don't think people are going to go back to the theaters. That's my own opinion. And I may be isolated in this, but home theater, technologically, there's nothing that's going to convince people to go and spend $100 on water, popcorn, and M&Ms. when they can do it at their house and push pause and go pee anytime they want and not miss anything. I don't see it happening. A lot of people are like, oh no, theater's never gonna. I mean, outside of a small niche of like, ooh, we went to the theater, it'll be like listening to vinyl is now. Vinyl is not eponymous. It's people listen to streaming. But there are people that still collect vinyl, but they're few and far between. It's like a little niche audience. I don't think people are going to go back to the theaters in droves.
So
I think
the multiplex might go back to the one screen theater if that.
yeah, I don't see the 21
Good.
movies. There's not even that many films to fill it up anymore
Right.
on releases. It's just not.
They'll re-release old stuff, or they'll put Wizard of Oz at the Sphere. Yeah.
I would be blown away if there's a resurgence in going to the theater. I'd be blown away.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about faith-based genre? Do you think they've jumped the shark, or do you see lots more good stuff coming up?
Well, I hope talented artists start making faith-based because generally speaking, Christian music is bad music. Generally speaking, faith-based films are bad movies. And like I spoke about Young Indie, I think you first have to lead with entertainment. It's got to be a good, well-crafted film. Nobody's going to swallow the message if it's filled with eye rolls. And a lot of faith-based films now are just one eye roll after the other. I mean, some of the faith-based films, they want to shoot it with zero profanity. I'm, I'm sorry, but profanity is a part of reality. That's almost like saying we cannot have any crimes being committed in this movie because we don't believe in crimes. That's part of reality. It doesn't mean that you're promoting committing crimes, but to not have some people that are ethically sound and some people that are ethically unsound and the same. I don't know. It's just they need to come to the realization that you have to make a good film and then hide a good message in a good film.
Yeah, if you took the bad words out of Heat, for example, you would have a very bad movie. That street talk was part of it. All the Scorsese movies. Neil McDonough had a rule he wouldn't kiss another woman but his wife, like George Strait actually wouldn't in Pure Country. And rumor has it Chris Hemsworth in Thor had his wife stand in a wig for Natalie Portman. But Neil said finally being able to kiss the girl in the end in The Last Rodeo because it was his wife he co-starred with. How do you maintain your faith when casting agents aren't always as accommodating hiring for like the good roles?
Well, the same way. I'll put it this way. I've been teaching jujitsu since 2003. I don't roll with women for that very reason. There's positions in jujitsu where you have someone between your legs. It looks exactly like the missionary position. I'm not going to put myself in that position with a woman. I'm just not. And some people can, disparage me and say, "Oh my God, you caveman, that way of thinking, okay, Puritan." Well, you can say whatever you want. I'm just not going to put myself in that position. I have no business with my face between a woman's legs. And that is a position in jiu-jitsu. It's called a triangle choke. I have no business being in that position. And I'm going to choose not to be that way. And some people can go, "I can't believe you don't roll with women. That's ridiculous." Feel free to say that. I just don't. That's just me. That's a choice that I make for my life and my family. I would never let my wife see a photo of me like that. And, look, I wasn't always that way. When I was single, I made movies where you're simulating all aspects of romance. I don't want to do that now. Hopefully I've made adjustments in my life, and I think I'm honoring the marriage and the sacred, and hopefully I'm getting closer and closer to that as I get older and I learn more. But no, I don't want to simulate anything like that, even if it's simulated.
That's great because movies like Black Widow and Tomb Raider and all the rest that have the 105-pound woman, jumping around the neck and doing exactly what you just said to take down the 300-pound special forces guy has become so normal that we kind of think like that could probably actually happen, and it's not true. And so it's good that you're a human being behind an actor, not an actor pretending to be a human being. So Sean, I want to thank you first of all, for coming on here. But we're at the end here. So how can people find out more about you, follow your social media if you've got it, and what can they look forward to coming next?
All social media. I run my own social media. People ask me all the time, do you run this? Please tell Sean this. Man, if you send me a message, I read it. I respond to pretty much everything. You can find me on social media and Blue Ridge coming out. I have another movie I shot with a wonderful individual, Jim Burleson, called Coppers. We just finished that in Albuquerque. If you look at IMDb, like you said, there's 8 things in post-production. IMDb, they make up all kind of crap. When my mom was still around, she would call me asking me about these projects that I'm attached to that I'd never even heard of. So, but I do have a couple of things coming out that I'm looking forward to, and things around the corner that I'll be free to talk about relatively soon. But you can
Awesome.
look for social media. I respond to everything.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on with us. Hang on, folks. I will be right back.
Sing a song about the heartland, the only place I feel at home. Sing about the way a good man works until the daylight's gone. Sing the rain on the roof.
Thanks for coming back. It's that time to remind everyone to please subscribe to heartlandjournal.com. That is how we grow and keep this content free for you. Now, the Heartland Journal news. America's coming crash. Will Washington's debt addiction spark the next global crisis? By Kenneth S. Rogoff, September-October 2025, published on August 19th, 2025. For much of the past quarter century, the rest of the world has looked in wonder at the United States' ability to borrow its way out of trouble. Again and again, under both Democrat and Republican administrations, the government has used debt more vigorously than almost any other country to fight wars, global recessions, pandemics, and financial crises. Even as U.S. public debt rapidly climbed from one plateau to the next, net debt is now nearing 100% of national income. Creditors at home and abroad show no signs of debt fatigue. For years after the 2008-2009 global financial crisis, interest rates on Treasury debt were ultra low, as low as 0.25%. And a great many economists came to believe that they would remain so into the distant future. Thus, running government deficits, fresh borrowing seemed a veritable free lunch. Even though debt to income levels jumped radically after each crisis, there was no apparent need to save up for the next one. Given the dollar's reputation as the world's premier safe and liquid asset, global bond market investors would always be happy to digest another huge pile of debt dollars, especially in a crisis situation in which uncertainty was high and safe assets were in short supply. The past few years have cast serious doubt on those assumptions. For starters, bond markets have become far less submissive, and long-term interest rates have risen sharply on 10 and 30-year U.S. Treasury bonds. For a big debtor like the United States, the gross U.S. debt is now nearly 37 trillion, roughly as large as that of all the other major advanced economies combined. These higher rates can really hurt. When the average rate paid rises by 1%, that translates to $370 billion more in annual interest payments the government must make. In fiscal year 2024, the United States spent $850 billion on defense, more than any other country. But it spent an even larger sum, $880 billion, on interest payments. As of May 2025, all the major credit rating agencies had downgraded U.S. debt. And there is a growing perception among banks and foreign governments that hold trillions of dollars in U.S. debt that the country's fiscal policy may be going off the rails. The increasing unlikelihood that the ultra-low borrowing rates of the 2010s will come back anytime soon has made the situation all the more dangerous. There is no magic fix. U.S. President Donald Trump's efforts to place the blame for high rates on the Federal Reserve Board are deeply misleading. The Federal Reserve controls the overnight borrowing rate, but longer-term rates are set by vast global markets. If the Fed sets the overnight rate too low and markets expect inflation to rise, long-term rates will also rise. After all, unexpectedly high inflation is effectively a form of partial default, since investors get repaid in dollars whose purchasing power has been debased. If they come to expect high inflation, they will naturally require a higher return to compensate. One of the main reasons governments have an independent central bank is precisely to reassure investors that inflation will remain tame and thereby keep long-term interest rates low. If the Trump administration or any other administration moves to undermine the Fed's independence, that would ultimately raise government borrowing costs, not lower them. Nixon already screwed that up, by the way. Regardless of when and how the AI revolution unfolds, it's possible that another major economic shock may not be far off. During the COVID-19 pandemic, a short-lived recession and the large-scale government response to it added debt roughly equivalent to 15% of GDP. In the case of the global financial crisis, the debt added was closer to 30% of GDP. It seems reasonable to assume that another shock approaching this magnitude, a cyber war, even a full-blown military conflict, a climate catastrophe, or another financial crisis or pandemic, will come in the next 5 to 7 years. One might view the more modest CBO growth projections as realistically balancing the odds that the economy could see fantastic growth, most likely driven by AI, with the odds of a new shock. If you listened to my show last week, not very good odds. How fast the US debt levels grow will also depend on the interest rate. The CBO has estimated that the government will have to pay an average interest rate of 3.6% through 2055. It's already higher than that. This average takes into account that the government borrows at both short and long-term maturities. Here, too, the Trump administration views the CBO as far too pessimistic. The president seems to believe that the economy can go back to the extremely low interest rates of his first term, when they averaged less than half the current rates and there was only very modest inflation. It is hard otherwise to understand why he would be pressing for the Fed to cut its short-term policy interest rates by as much as 3 percentage points. True, some of the factors that contributed to the very low interest rates are still present today, including aging populations in most advanced countries, but there are plenty of reasons to think that long-term interest rates will remain higher well into the future. Foremost, government debt is exploding globally, putting upward pressure on U.S. rates in a world of integrated capital markets. For example, the average net debt to GDP ratio for the G7 countries has grown from 55% in 2006, 20 years ago, to 95% today. In fact, the United States is not even the worst offender. Japan's net debt to GDP ratio is 134%. Its gross public debt is a staggering 235% of GDP. For Italy, the ratio is 127%. France, 108%, and the United States, 98%. Other upward pressures on interest rates include the rise in many countries of populist parties, which are pushing for more domestic spending, AI's voracious appetite for electricity, which generates a huge demand for investment that has to be financed, tariff wars, and the fracturing of global trade, which are forcing companies to invest in reshoring with massive borrowing and the ever-growing cost of adapting to climate change and responding to climate disasters. Although some economists take note of these trends, have begun to reconsider the seductive assumptions of the 2010s, there is little sign that Washington has, and with high interest rates already at levels of debt, political upheaval, and challenges to Fed independence, there is now real risk that a fresh economic shock could precipitate a broader collapse. It is impossible to predict how and when a U.S. debt problem may erupt and what the consequences will be. Unpalatable austerity, high inflation, financial repression, partial default, or a mix of these. There are strong reasons to assume that inflation will have a pronounced part as it did during the 1970s. Regardless, a debt crisis will be destabilizing for the United States, the global economy, and the dollar's reserve status. Left unchecked, it could erode the country's position in the new world. That's it for this episode. Thank you, Sean Patrick Flanery, for showing up for work every day, even when the secular powers that be don't want you to. They want you and your ideas and your faith, especially, shut out of the arena of cultural relevance, but they can't. They keep trying, but they can't kill an idea and can't ban art, no matter how taboo it'll be found, like Elvis, Ozzy Osbourne, Andy Warhol, et cetera, et cetera. You just can't hold the beach ball under the water that long. Like I said, they'll keep trying. They know now what to do, and they know not what they do. Jesus. Forgive them Forgive me for feeling hate and anger for their willingness to commit political violence. I'll try to forgive them too. This is goodbye for now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. See you all next time. Peace in our time, and definitely glory to God.
This was no gangland assassination. It was way too sloppy. Something went wrong with it. All the lowlifes in Quiet City, Boston start dropping dead, and you think it's unrelated. They're all bad guys. Now they're all dead bad guys.
Anybody you think is evil, don't you think that's a little weird, a little psycho? Hey, man. All the things I wish I could do, these guys are doing.
This guy's very sharp. He hasn't figured us out yet, he will. All we know is what we found out from the neighbors. And the general consensus is they're angels.
Sort of like 7-Eleven. We're not always doing business, but we're always open.
That was nicely put.
Nomini Patri. Et Fili. Spiritus Sancti.
Okay, my last question for you, I have to ask you because at Joe Blow, and it's we're huge fans of the Boondock Saints series. It's got such a huge following with us. So are you guys going to do another one? Because there's been rumors and stuff like that. Is it going to happen?
Yeah.
All
And
right,
it's a bigger one. I mean,
Oh,
we did that first one for $7 million, I think, and it made so much money, but it never went to theaters because of the Columbine shooting.
Yeah.
Nobody would touch it. So Troy, the director, he rented out 2 theaters just to show it to the crew. So the rumor was it only made 2 theaters, but they didn't even sell tickets to those 2 theaters. He just rented out the theaters. So, it was the problem or the challenge is making a third with money with that sort of indie energy to it, So that's right now we're finding that. But yeah,
Well, it's funny. 27 years later, man, that movie's that's one of the biggest cult movies of all time. So yeah.
It's funny because it was back when Blockbuster was around, right? And
Yeah, it was an exclusive. I worked at Blockbuster when it came out.
well, then you can tell me if this is true, but I went into, the people at Blockbuster and everything, they're sending us cakes of Boondock Saints covers, and they're having parties celebrating how much money it's making, whatever. But I remember going to a Blockbuster. I was in California. There was one on Sunset and some shit east of Fairfax, I believe. And I walked in and it was walls of Boondock Saints. And I was like, whoa. And the guy goes, we rent more Boondock Saints than Titanic.
Yeah, we never had it in stock. We never had it in stock at our place. It was one of the most not returned movies ever. And we used to always have to call people to get it back. So yeah.
Oh, good. Good.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Nice to meet you, man.
Bye.
The sun was shining, the sky open wide. Your words still echo like flags in the town. Stand up for truth, you called us to do. Raise high the banner of red, white, and blue. So we'll rise, hand in hand, for the good of this land. We'll carry the flame, let the flag still wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Through sorrow and trial, our voices ring true. We'll stand for the stars in the red, white, and blue. Take care of the widow, take care of the child. Guard every promise with hearts reconciled. We'll fight for the dream, We'll fight for the right, with stripes on our shoulders and stars in our sight. So we'll rise hand in hand for the good of this land. We will carry the flame, let the flag still wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Through sorrow and toil,
Yeah, I've been dreaming of the wild, wild plains, walking where the pine trees dance, where the river runs deep and the bird calls sing.
Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.
Myself ever get this far from the heart.